So in the last lecture, we finished our rule setup with adding a rule for images. Now I want to have a look at plugins and then see if the setup actually works. Now, regarding plugins, it's actually super simple for us here. We don't need any for the development workflow. We will add one later when we set this up for production. There I want to add a plugin, but for now, that is all. I won't add a plugin here. So with that, we can have a look at the setup we used here and see if we save the file, if this works, if we run our start script, which runs the dev server, which I said would automatically take this config file. So let's run this script with npm start, make sure all files are saved, and let's see if this works. We get an error here that the path is not an absolute path. So something with our output path is wrong. Let's have a look at it. Let's go to our webpack config, path here for output. Well, I messed that up, didn't I? Path should be this part here, and public path should be the empty string. So with this fix, let's now try it again. Also make sure to save the updated config file. So now at least it doesn't crash when starting the server. It does give us an error though, that it doesn't understand this import syntax here, the dynamic import syntax. It doesn't understand this. So how do we make it to understand this dynamic import? We need to adjust our setup here to be able to create dynamically generated extra chunks of code. Lazy loading means that it's an extra bundle and not part of the main bundle which is downloaded initially. To support code splitting in Webpack, and code splitting is just a different name for lazy loading, I have to add chunk file name here to my output config. This simply determines what these other files, the separate files which are generated for the lazy loaded code, which is of course not included in the bundle, that would defeat the purpose of code splitting, what these file names should be named. They have to have a variable part in their name because they are generated by Webpack dynamically. I'll use id.js here. ID is a dynamically generated ID, 0, 1, 2, and so on, generated by Webpack, so that features outsourced into separate bundles receive their own JavaScript files. Additionally, we need to make Babel aware of this dynamic import syntax, which it otherwise doesn't understand. So what I'll do is I'll install a plugin, npm install -- save dev. It's called Babel -plugin syntax dynamic import. And this will make sure that Babel understands this dynamic import syntax. So once this was installed, we can go to the Babel RC file. And we already got presets. Now I'll also add a plugins node here, which also is an array. And here I'll add my syntax dynamic import plugin. So that's the name of the plugin. With that added, let's save all these files and let's retry npm start and see if this now works. Now this compiles, but we get a different error. We get an error that this syntax here, where we assign our properties like this, isn't liked. The reason for this is that the nth preset, which we're using, this one here, only supports latest browser features that are part of the specification. This special property syntax is only in draft state though, and it's not included in the nth preset. Isn't a problem though, we just have to add another preset. So with npm install save dev, we now install another preset which is named Babel -preset -stage-2. Stage 2 presets simply are draft features which may eventually get supported but which we already want to use. So with that, we have to add this to our setup here, and I'll add my preset in the middle. I'll add stage-2 here, like this. Let's now try this again with npm start. And now this looks better. At least we don't get an error. We'll face one problem though. The application is now served, and by default it's doing that on localhost 8080. So let's open that. There, however, we won't see the app. The reason is that we didn't connect our build output, which by the way is not stored in the dist folder when we use Webpack dev server, but in memory, that we didn't connect that output with the index.html file. We have no imports in that file. How would we add the script to it? That is something we have to do on our own, and we will do that in the next lecture.